It's almost like a scene out of The Walking Dead.
He was being terrorized with his children in the car.
Get out of my way.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Dad. Dad.
February 28, 2020, Spokane, Washington. As a dad and his 2 teenage kids pull out of a parking lot, a stranger suddenly gets right in front of them.
This woman with a bicycle insisting that this man has stolen her car.
Look out, man. Look out, man.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car.
Man, get out the way, man.
She's following him and she insists that this is her car. She's blocking traffic, she's in his way, she's keeping him from driving, and he's annoyed about it.
The driver tells his kids to pull out their phones.
Court.
I am.
Press 911.
Max, call. Max, call.
I am with honey. Get your ass out my way. Get your ass out my way. Get your ass out my way. Get the out from me.
He's just trying to figure out what's going on and get his family away to safety.
Then, things get even scarier.
Other people start to come in.
You see all these strangers threatening a driver.
One man is hiding a hand inside his jacket.
What is he doing?
I was very afraid that someone was going to break a window or that someone was going to pull out a gun. They are terrorizing this family.
Dad!
Hello?
The crowd closes in.
Lock your door.
We don't know who these people are. We don't know how many there are. We don't know what their motives are.
They kick and punch the car. And when one man aggressively tries to open the driver's side door, the family's panic escalates.
Yeah.
Dad!
What you doing? This is her car. This is not her car. This is not her car.
Dad!
Get out of the car! Get out!
This is not her car. Not her car. This is not her car.
Dad!
Hello? We need help. Hey. Man,
Oh, Dad! Dad!
Dad, go.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Dad! Dad!
People behave very differently. Once they take on that mob mentality, a switch goes off in the human brain when you're part of a mob, and suddenly you're doing things that you might not otherwise do.
And when the dad desperately tries to drive off,
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my! Oh my God!
A man gets on the hood of the car to keep them from getting away.
a 911 operator is listening to all of it.
I can't see anything. They're using bikes to hit my car. They're trying to open my doors. I got 2 kids in the car with me.
This is a pretty long attack. 10 minutes can seem like 10 hours when your life is at risk.
Finally, the driver sees an opening in the mob, so he takes a chance and floors it.
Oh my God, no, Dad. Oh my God. Oh my God, Dad, the door.
As they peel out of the parking lot, the daughter turns her camera around.
Daddy's on a motorcycle.
They start chasing this family.
Like, I got about 6 people attacking my car. Somebody just rode on my hood.
No, Dad.
They're getting my car with motorcycles and bicycles.
He was on the phone with the police. He was trying to literally navigate around these people.
Daddy's behind you.
After a harrowing drive, the family finally escapes the mob. But when the dad, Lee Allen, follows up with police, they tell him they're unable to locate any of the people involved.
This father really felt like police did not get the magnitude of what happened. He was being terrorized with his children in the car. They were legitimately in danger.
Hello, we need help.
Oh, Dad.
So Lee decides to post the terrifying video, and it gets more than 1 million views.
The reason was to show people what he went through so that they could see how serious this was.
Even after the video goes viral, no charges are filed. In comments, people are infuriated, saying they understand Lee's frustration.
Dad!
There must be so much comfort in the response that he's gotten. In so many people saying, you were in danger and you did everything right. This was a group of people who were attacking their family car and chasing them. Their father was calling for help. It's going to trigger so many feelings of anxiety and fear, and it might take quite a while for them to get over this. My heart goes out to this father.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Dad! Dad!
And coming up next, amazing video of a worker who jumps in to save the day and still makes his delivery.
Serving up both pizza and justice.
He flew through the air. My biggest game-winning save, for sure.
April 16th, 2023, Brookhaven, Pennsylvania.
It was a Sunday around 1 o'clock. Just a pretty normal day for me, delivering pizza. I was probably on my 4th or 5th delivery.
Tyler Morrell is standing at a customer's door when chaos erupts behind him.
I hear a screech, and the siren's right after him. It's a 25-mile-an-hour school zone. So I knew something was awry.
That's a high-speed chase. That's a high-speed chase.
With the pizza still in hand, Tyler goes to take a closer look.
Oh my God, Jagger! Oh my God, Jagger!
Suddenly, the driver who was in a stolen car jumps out to make a run for it.
I have no idea if the suspect is armed or dangerous.
The runaway suspect is fast, but he's in for a big surprise.
Out of the 360 different directions the person could have run, he runs towards the biggest person on the road.
The man goes flying after Tyler trips him. He takes off into air.
I love a pizza delivery man who just having a normal day and then something outrageous happens around him and he's kind of like, I've just been delivering pizzas all day. I want to get involved.
I was shocked pizza was not flying everywhere. Tyler has a size 14 shoe. That's definitely one you're going to trip on.
The 17-year-old suspect is immediately arrested.
I wasn't trying to hurt anybody. I was just trying to help the situation.
It turns out being fast on his feet comes naturally to Tyler.
I'm on my 21st year of playing lacrosse goalie competitively, and I made 1,000 leg saves in my career. I'm 6'8", and my leg is probably 4 feet long. I view that as probably my biggest game-winning save, for sure.
The video quickly goes viral, turning Tyler into an overnight celebrity.
A pizza delivery driver is getting some community love for going above and beyond.
Helping catch a suspected car thief without ever dropping the pizza.
All the major news networks reached out to me within 24 hours, calling my parents' house, trying to get a hold of me.
People applaud Tyler for stepping up. He's even praised by the police chief.
We would tell people that we don't want them to get involved because we don't want anybody to get hurt. But in this case, this is a gentleman that obviously believes in his community.
But Tyler takes it all in humble stride.
I don't call myself a crime fighter. People have called me Pizza Batman.
Tyler was just kind of like, oh, yeah, I did that. Another day, another pizza. He's so chill.
The 17-year-old driver is arrested and charged as a juvenile. At the end of the day, Tyler is a hero in more ways than one, going back to the house to make sure his customers got what they ordered.
I think that Tyler still delivering the pizza to the family and putting his best foot forward was the best outcome anyone could have asked for.
But no one is sure what the outcome will be in this next horrifying video.
A 93-year-old man
Pulling out a gun.
This footage is shocking.
Drop the gun! Drop it now!
January 2nd, 2020, Las Vegas, Nevada. 93-year-old Robert Thomas has a complaint to lodge at his apartment complex about a leaky pipe.
Anytime you see an older person, I think there's just a part of you that doesn't think they're going to be a big threat.
Oddly, Thomas asks the assistant manager to call the police. And then he does something that nobody sees coming.
He pulls out this gun. This is where it gets terrifying.
As Thomas threatens to fire the gun, the manager keeps her cool.
She is very calm. You do not want to antagonize or fluster someone who is pointing a firearm at you.
But this old man is not playing around.
Normally people wave around guns and it's just like a threat, but it's loaded. He shoots it into the back of the room, it hits a computer.
As the terrified people at the desk sit frozen in shock, another employee quietly tries to back out of the way. They have no idea why this man has turned violent. The manager, who is now on the phone with police, edges toward the door.
He actually lets her leave the office to continue the phone call to the police.
For a moment, it seems like Thomas is calming down. But then
he just shoots him in the leg.
At very close range.
The man falls out of his chair.
This is horrifying. The victim is wailing in pain, while Thomas is coldly indifferent.
This man is standing over him with a gun.
Police are racing to the scene.
Unit B advisor, shots fired.
But will they get there before this turns deadly?
He is only a foot or so away from him. He's probably begging for his life. This guy has already proven he has no problem pulling the trigger.
As officers enter the parking lot,
Shots still being fired.
He shoots him a second time.
now the victim is clinging to life.
This was a nightmare for this man.
We gotta make entry.
They hear gunshots. They can see somebody standing with a gun over a man who is on the ground.
Hey! Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Drop it now! Drop it!
He was immediately taken into custody.
The 93-year-old is hit with a laundry list of charges, including attempted murder, kidnapping, and burglary with a deadly weapon. The shocking video goes viral, with many people surprisingly sympathetic towards the elderly gunman. In court, Thomas claims he didn't intend to hurt anyone.
I didn't want to hurt you guys. Okay. I just wanted to stir up a little.
They are in Vegas. You almost wonder, is he ex-mafia? For him to go straight to a firearm over a leak, it feels like he's dealt with issues like this in this way in the past.
Police say Thomas had no prior criminal history. Luckily, the victim, who was shot twice in the leg, recovers. Nobody is sure what prompted the old man's dangerous tirade.
They said he was upset about flooding in his apartment, but is that justification for bringing a gun into the apartment complex's office? Given this man's age and then what we see in the mugshot, I think there's a very good chance that we were dealing with some age-related dementia, some reduced mental faculties. Eyes tell a lot. You look at this man's eyes in the mugshot and he clearly does not seem okay.
But before anyone gets to the bottom of it, things take a turn. Thomas passes away in police custody of natural causes. It had been 4 months since the shooting, and he was awaiting trial.
He was actually being evaluated for his competency to stand trial. So there are real questions here about if he was okay.
Although viral commenters still wonder if maybe after 93 years, this old guy had just completely run out of patience.
Drop the gun! Drop it now! Drop it!
Coming Coming up next, a viral reckless driver. Unlike anything you've ever seen before.
He just rammed it into my car.
Whoa! Hey! Hey!
This officer was very confused.
Hey! Stop your horse!
Asleep at the reins.
He just rammed it into my car.
May 14th, 2022, Orwell, Ohio. It's 2:30 a.m. when a sheriff's deputy responds to a call about a reckless driver.
Whoa!
When he arrives, he's in for a shock.
Whoa!
It's a horse and buggy with no driver in sight.
I have to imagine that this officer was very confused because he sees the horse, he sees the buggy, but he doesn't see the driver. He must have been asking himself what happened to him.
Hey! Hey!
This buggy just completely bypasses him. The horse acts like he doesn't even see him.
Hey! Hey!
But then he sees it. There is someone inside the buggy, a young man who is unresponsive.
Is he okay? Does he need medical attention? Did he pass out? Maybe he was just really tired.
As another officer pulls up, the deputy figures it out.
There's a Bud Light can sitting in there and he's passed clean out.
And this is not your typical drunk driver. He's an Amish man.
I didn't know drunk and Amish could go together in the same sentence.
But the deputy isn't overly concerned.
He'll go home. The horse knows how to get home.
Actually, he's right. Horses do know how to get home. So the horse was probably headed home because he wanted to eat some hay and go to sleep.
The officers trail behind as the horse leads the way.
He's eastbound on Bogue. Got a drunk Amish guy passed out in a buggy, and I hit the side of the buggy and hollered at the guy. He's passed clean out.
This officer knows he has a job to do. He knows he has to protect the public, but come on, this is pretty comical.
The horse won't stop, huh?
No.
This is one of the slowest chases in history.
Frustrated with the leisurely trot, the officers decide it might be easier to stop the horse and get the man out.
I'm gonna see if I can get in front of him and slow down.
We might have it stopped. Nope. Disregard. He just rammed it into my car. Nope.
The crash jolts the drunk man awake.
Hey! Stop your horse! Stop your horse! Stop your horse! Get your horse!
He woke up, probably was going through a lot in his head, and one of the things was probably like, is this why I'm never supposed to drink?
He's soon surrounded by a small crowd of curious residents and laughing officers.
Orwell's in a pursuit of a buggy. I'm like, no effing way. And they're like, no, yes, he is. And I was like, okay. So I left you with the cows. I come down here.
Officers are now coming in hot. They're like, oh, is the car damaged? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do with the buggy?
That's all over the back.
Maybe puke, I don't know.
Police managed to get 21-year-old Nathan Miller out of the buggy and into handcuffs.
Dude, don't be hit. Head. He gets in and hits his head.
He's charged with operating a vehicle while intoxicated.
Buggies are technically considered vehicles, and not for nothing, but they are capable of hurting or injuring people. I mean, imagine coming face to face with a rogue buggy when you're behind the wheel of a car.
Video of the unusual incident hits the news.
A horse buggy driver asleep at the reins.
An Amish buggy on the run. The buggy's driver out of commission.
And nabbed some 200,000 views as armchair comedians have a field day. Miller pleads no contest, serves 3 days, and pays $5,200 in restitution.
If this all was the consequence of like one light beer, was it worth it?
Woman runs for her life as a doorbell camera records.
An alleged kidnapping caught on camera.
This video is heartbreaking.
On a quiet suburban street in the dark early morning of New Year's Day, a terrifying scene unfolds.
This car pulls up and stops. A woman gets out and she starts running towards the door.
She's knocking on the door frantically, trying to get someone's attention. A male individual exits the same vehicle and approaches her.
She needs help.
She's got nowhere to go. She's terrified. You can hear it in her voice.
You clearly hear her say, "Stop, Darnell."
The woman seems to know her attacker, but who is he and why is he doing this?
As a police officer, I've had many experiences where I've had footage like this. It never gets easier to look at it.
We don't know what he wants. We don't know what's going to happen to her.
No one hears her scream until hours later when the homeowner discovers the disturbing footage on his Ring camera.
When he sees this video, he's probably traumatized. Someone feels incredibly helpless when they can't help someone who needs them, especially when they're literally at their doorstep begging for help.
Horrified, he immediately calls police.
If this is an abduction, you only have a small window to get her back. The more time that passes, the more dangerous the situation becomes for her.
This could be a case of trafficking. He could be someone who is exploiting her, who's abusing her.
Police share the video with the public.
Home surveillance showing a woman running up to the door of a house, pleading for help, attacked by a man, and dragged away just seconds later.
What we are able to show you is still pretty disturbing, so a warning to our viewers.
Police are on the hunt right now for the woman and the kidnapper, asking for your help.
Officers received many tips. Fortunately, the footage is pretty clear. You can see both of the individuals' faces. It didn't take long for someone to realize who they were.
The next day, police are able to determine that the suspect's name is Darnell Rogers.
And it turns out this is no random act of violence.
Darnell Rogers is the partner of this victim and the father of her child.
What we later learned was they were at a New Year's Eve party together. There was alcohol involved, and on the way home, there was a verbal argument.
And she was afraid for her safety, so she decided to flee from that situation.
And that's what we caught on footage.
What's not caught on camera is perhaps the most shocking and disturbing part of this story.
Their baby was in the car while all this is happening.
This woman is so desperate to get away from her abusive partner, she leaves her baby behind in the car. The baby is unharmed. One day after the incident, Darnell Rogers is arrested. He pleads guilty to 1 count of coercion and 1 count of battery domestic violence.
These surveillance systems are so helpful for us in following up, in countering the crimes, to combat these violent crimes in nature.
But at sentencing, there's an unexpected twist. The victim pleads with the judge for leniency.
When you're traumatized and physically and emotionally broken down by your partner, the impacts are very complex. She's probably responding to the effects of that long-lasting trauma.
In court, she says, "I know what happened that night is not who he really is." And she says that if he goes to prison, the absence will take a toll on their daughter. The judge gives him 3 years probation.
It's hard to ignore a mother's pleas. It's hard to ignore a battered person's pleas. It's likely that he got leniency because she asked for it.
And this troubling video is an important reminder to anyone suffering in silence.
You know, this situation is horrible, and if you or someone out there you know is going through a similar situation where they're involved in domestic violence, do yourself and your family a favor and get out of it as soon as possible. If this person has done it once to you, they can do it again, and nobody deserves this.
It's also alarming when innocent children don't feel safe walking home alone. This video is a parent's worst nightmare, and it has millions of views. It all begins on a Thursday night in suburban Salt Lake City.
10-year-old Graydon is walking home from basketball practice just 2 doors down from his own house. He's walking along. He looks back, and this sedan with 2 or 3 guys pulls up next to him, telling him to get in the car. Clearly, Graydon has spidey sense. He knows something is wrong.
Graydon picks up his pace, but so does the car.
Who are these guys? What do they want with this 10-year-old boy?
The strangers in the car try to entice Graydon with candy.
It's something we've all grown up hearing. Don't take candy from strangers.
It's terrifying to think that there are still criminals out there trying to lure kids in with candy.
With his front door in view, Graydon races up the steps to get inside. But the door is locked.
He starts calling for his mom, which breaks your heart to hear, because your parents are the only people you think can save you. Hearing him scream like that for his mother, you clearly know he's terrified.
The white sedan is right at the edge of the family's property line.
Whoever is in that car is parked and waiting there for a reason, and you can see them there in the distance to the right of Graydon on the surveillance camera.
And just when you think it can't get worse, the car suddenly goes straight towards him.
Those lights come on, and here comes that car again. You wonder if someone's gonna jump out and grab Graydon.
But that's when this young boy bravely fights back.
He's making a scene, he's throwing rocks, not only for defense, but being as loud and rambunctious as possible.
It's clear that Graydon has been taught well by his parents about what to do in this situation. He's trying to alert anyone that there are strangers in this neighborhood and he needs help.
Now, Graydon sees his chance to escape.
He's a really smart kid, too, running straight to a neighbor's house for help.
Which is luckily unlocked. He runs in, locks the door behind him.
Graydon is safely inside, but the car doesn't leave. It pulls into another driveway and waits.
How fast can a child be abducted? In a matter of seconds? Minutes?
Whoever is in the car that has been following Graydon, they refuse to leave, even after he takes refuge in a neighbor's house.
Can you imagine if that neighbor's door was locked as well?
Then, after a few tense minutes, the car finally drives away. Graydon's parents are so horrified, they shared the doorbell video online and with the media.
Less than 200 feet. I mean, if kids can't walk 2 doors down at 6 o'clock at night, I mean, that's scary. Hopefully we can find him.
You know, he's a smart kid and he's a fighter.
This could have gone completely the opposite way. Graydon could have been abducted and Graydon's parents might have never seen him again. But luckily, he is safe.
Police still don't know who was in the car or why they targeted Graydon, and the case remains unsolved. But it's an eye-opener for all parents and their neighbors.
They're in their neighborhood. You never think the worst possible scenario on your street.
Luckily in this situation, it seemed that Graydon had a good relationship, was able to rush into his neighbor's house. They were able to save him. If you see kids in your neighborhood, you gotta be able to help. And so it's important that you get to know them.
Having good neighbors can also be helpful when your business is targeted by criminals.
Grab as many high-priced items as you can and go.
This is broad daylight.
Everyone flees the store.
New York City has some of the world's most famous luxury stores.
This is high-end shopping. This is Balenciaga.
Too high-end for me.
And that makes them prime targets for criminals. Here, a seemingly innocent customer stops in to browse.
It's just a normal day. A woman comes into the shop. She starts looking around like she's looking at handbags, and then she asks for a certain size in a shoe. The worker goes to the back to find that shoe.
Little does the employee know, it's a setup.
The first person who walks into the store uses a distraction method of sorts.
This new surveillance video shows how it all went down.
While the worker is occupied in the back, a whole swarm of thieves descends on the store.
The rest of her accomplices come into the store and start grabbing everything they can in a matter of about 24 seconds.
The woman and her accomplices manage to snag 90 grand in merchandise.
They jump into a car, and then it's a high-speed chase. They're being chased down the street by cops. It gets up to over 100 miles per hour.
Police call off the chase out of concern for local residents.
High-speed chases are incredibly dangerous.
But luckily, the escape effort goes sideways.
The robbers crash the car up. They all get out on foot. They try to flee, but they're eventually captured, all except one. I hope they find that one woman, because clearly she might be the ringleader if she was the one that was brazen enough to go in and ask for the shoe in the first place. And she's probably committing these crimes in other places, so hopefully she's captured.
Her accomplices are charged with grand larceny, criminal possession of stolen property, and of a controlled substance. These high-end grab-and-goes are an all too familiar scene.
A lot of us watch heist films. If you're in and out as fast as possible, the likelihood you can get away is much higher.
This video captures a group clearing a store within minutes.
4 men busting into the Chanel store on Tuesday and raiding the place of designer goods by the fistful.
Robberies like this can happen anytime, day or night. This one was right smack in the middle of the afternoon.
The security guard confronted one of the people in the group, and he actually said to her, "What are you gonna do, shoot me?"
After a brave security guard confronts a group of thieves who are raiding a Chanel store, they bolt into a getaway car before police can get there.
This group stole 12 wallets, 32 handbags that were worth $200,000.
The high-end heist quickly hits the news.
A wild robbery caught on camera.
Here's some new video. It's from inside a Chanel store in Soho. A grab-and-go robbery unfolding in the middle of the day yesterday.
Grab-and-go thefts are notoriously hard to solve, but this time there's a glimpse of the license plate on the getaway car.
In this case, investigators were able to track the vehicle down and figure out exactly who it belongs to. It belongs to a rental company. It was later revealed that possibly phony documents were used.
It's a dead end. But then one of the suspects talks about the robbery online.
Social media is so funny. People can't help but brag online. And this guy said he actually stole so many handbags he could open up his own boutique.
That leads police right to this man, Eric Spencer. He's convicted of conspiracy to commit robbery among other charges and faces up to 40 years in prison. His partners in crime remain at large. They may make for movie-like viral video, but they take a toll on innocent employees.
I think these grab-and-goes, they're called victimless crimes because people think that insurance covers everything. But what they don't realize is the trauma from the people who are in the store, that is not victimless.
That's what happens in San Francisco, where a restaurant full of people witness a traumatic event.
A man started yelling violent threats.
This story goes viral because of the brave young woman at the heart of it.
This is a video that is widely shared on social media and really gained a lot of attention.
You will be found
you will be arrested and you will face criminal prosecution.
It's about 5 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon at a bustling burger joint. 19-year-old assistant manager Bianca Palomira is busy behind the counter. She has no idea that her whole life is about to change.
We start changing shifts. We weren't too short-staffed, but it was picking up. It was busy.
Outside, an SUV pulls up and 4 people get out.
I first saw them from a distance because they were in the front and I was in the back to the drive-thru area.
What Bianca doesn't know is that they are here to cause trouble.
This particular customer was allegedly bullying a special needs person inside of that establishment.
People who bully others who are perceived as being weaker tend to have a power complex, even if it means that someone else is getting hurt or ridiculed.
Out of camera view in the dining area, one of the men bullies an autistic teen. He's a friend of Bianca's, and she's furious, so she storms over to confront the man.
I just hear someone talking very loudly, very disrespectful, saying slurs to him, telling him he's gonna beat him up if he keeps looking at him. When I decided to say, you know, he's special needs.
But instead of listening to her, the man gets right in Bianca's face, yelling racial slurs. And then he hits her not once, but twice. Bianca's co-workers rush in to protect her, and numerous customers dial 911. The man's last punch hits Bianca right in the eye.
And she is viciously and very unfortunately attacked.
Her angry attacker pushes someone's order off a counter before fleeing. Bianca is rushed to a hospital where she gets sobering news.
They kept asking me if he was wearing any rings because they didn't think that a normal punch could rupture an eye.
A massive manhunt is launched to find the suspect.
The local police department in California teamed up very quickly with the United States Marshal Service, and they worked together in tandem to be able to track down leads and tips on this case.
It was definitely something that I was worried about, not only for me, but for my family. I mean, my sister was out on the news with me, so not only was I in danger, but also her.
For 3 weeks, she's on edge until he's finally arrested.
Bianca's story dominates the news and quickly goes viral.
The man got right into Palomira's face and yelled slurs at her.
The man then came after her. The second punch he threw hit her in the eye.
We're very proud of her. She did the right thing. Her heart was there when she did it.
With the help of online tipsters, the suspect, Isaac White Carter, is identified by U.S. Marshals and arrested outside his California home. But for Bianca, the arrest offers little solace.
The doctor came in to finally check on me. He opened my eye and I couldn't see anything at all. It was just black. I pretty much knew that I couldn't see.
Unfortunately, she did lose her eye in this incident.
Doctors replace Bianca's right eye with a prosthetic.
She is in the process of healing right now.
From a psychiatrist's point of view, to lose such a vital organ can be highly traumatizing.
White Carter is charged with 2 felony counts, mayhem and assault causing great bodily injury. Bianca's community rallies to her side, raising nearly $250,000 for her medical care. And the mayor gives her a key to the city.
In my book, Bianca is a hero.
Bianca, in this case, appeared to try to protect someone who was very vulnerable. It seems like she is doing her best to heal and to move on with a bright future.
And remarkably, she doesn't regret stepping in to help.
It's kind of like, I'm not a mother, but it's kind of like protecting your child. And I was very protective over him, like I was protecting a friend.
The house was quiet in a way that felt wrong, the kind of silence that presses against the ears and makes even the ticking of a wall clock sound like an accusation. The front door wasn't forced. The lights were still on. A purse sat untouched on the kitchen counter. Somewhere inside that ordinary suburban home, something had broken. Not glass, not wood, but a timeline, a family, a future. And no one realized yet that this moment would harden into a cold case that would refuse to stay buried for decades. It was late summer, the air thick with humidity and routine. Neighbors would later say nothing seemed unusual that evening. No screams, no cries, no warning. Just a woman who failed to show up the next morning, failed to answer her phone, failed to exist where she was expected to be. By noon, whispers began to ripple through the street. By nightfall, police cars lined the curb, red and blue lights slicing through the dark, turning curtains into silhouettes and curiosity into fear. This wasn't supposed to happen here. Not to her. Not to a family everyone thought they knew. Inside, investigators moved carefully, narrating every step into tape recorders, already aware that scenes like this have a habit of lying. The bedroom was neat. The bed was made. The bathroom showed signs of hurried use. A damp towel, a half-open drawer. In the kitchen, dishes from dinner sat in the sink, rinsed but not washed, as if interrupted mid-thought. There was no blood. No había estrago. Just absence. And absence, police know, can be the loudest clue of all. Her name spread quickly through the community, spoken softly at first, then with urgency. She was a mother, a wife, a fixture at school events, church gatherings, neighborhood barbecues. The kind of person whose routines were so predictable that her disappearance felt like a glitch in reality. Detectives canvassed the area, knocking on doors, asking the same questions again and again. When was the last time you saw her? Did you hear anything? Did you notice a strange car? Most answers were shrugs, apologies, uneasy eye contact. Everyone wanted to help. No one had anything solid. The husband became the center of gravity almost immediately, as he always does. He told police he'd gone to bed early, said they'd had a normal evening. No argument, no tensión. His timeline was clean, almost too clean, but there was nothing to break it open. Friends backed him up, describing a marriage with the usual ups and downs, nothing that screamed violence. Officers noted his calm, his composure, the way he answered questions without hesitation. Some saw it as innocence. Others quietly wrote it down as something to remember. Days turned into weeks. Search teams combed nearby woods, canals, stretches of swamp that swallowed light and sound. Helicopters circled overhead. Divers descended into murky water where visibility dropped to nothing within inches. Nothing surfaced. Not a body. Not clothing. Not a trace that could anchor the investigation to a single direction. The case began to thin, stretched by leads that went nowhere and tips fueled more by fear than fact. Rumors filled the vacuum left by evidence. Some said she'd run away. Others whispered about a secret lover, a hidden life. There were stories of a strange man seen at a gas station, of a scream heard blocks away that might have been a television. Each tip was logged, chased, and quietly discarded. Detectives felt the familiar frustration setting in, that sense that the truth was close enough to touch, yet completely invisible. By the end of the year, the language changed. Press conferences grew shorter. The word missing started to share space with presumed. Files thickened with paperwork but not with answers. The investigation slowed, not because it was unimportant, but because it had nowhere left to go. Florida had claimed another mystery, and the case slipped into a new category, one that carries its own kind of stigma. Cold case. Life moved on unevenly. The neighborhood returned to its routines, though the house remained a quiet landmark, a reminder of something unresolved. Children grew older. Jobs changed. New families moved in, unaware of the history under their feet. But inside the family, time did not heal, it calcified. Holidays were marked by absence. Conversations danced around certain names. Questions lingered, unasked but heavy, shaping relationships in ways no one could quite articulate. Years later, detectives would say the case never truly left them. It sat on shelves, in boxes, in the back of their minds, resurfacing whenever a similar disappearance crossed their desks. Sometimes they'd pull the file, flip through faded photographs and yellowing reports, hoping distance had given them new eyes. It never did. The evidence remained stubbornly mute. Then came the small things that, at the time, seemed insignificant. A neighbor who changed their story slightly. A financial record that didn't quite add up. A family disagreement that felt sharper than grief alone could explain. None of it was enough. Not then. Not by the standards of 1979, when forensic science was blunt and timelines were built more on trust than technology. The husband remarried. Children left home. The community stopped asking questions. Officially, the case stayed open, but everyone understood what that meant. It meant a drawer that might be opened again someday or might not. It meant justice deferred indefinitely. Decades passed. By the early 2000s, the world had changed in ways no one in 1979 could have imagined. DNA databases expanded. Cold case units were formed, staffed by investigators who specialized not in chasing fresh leads, but in interrogating the past. Old evidence, once considered useless, became valuable again. Files were digitized, timelines reconstructed with ruthless precision. And one afternoon, a box was pulled from storage. Not because of a tip, not because of a confession, but because someone noticed something that had always been there. Inside were transcripts of interviews conducted in the first weeks after the disappearance. Family members, friends, neighbors, statements taken when emotions were raw and stories hadn't yet been rehearsed by time. A detective read them slowly, line by line, comparing them to later versions given years afterward. The differences were subtle, but they were there. Time shifted, a detail softened, a memory rewritten. Attention turned inward, toward the family itself, not as suspects, but as a system. Investigators began mapping relationships, resentments, financial pressures that had existed beneath the surface. What they found was not dramatic at first glance. No habeas motive. No history of violence. Just cracks, small, persistent cracks, that, under pressure, can cause entire structures to fail. One name began to surface more often than the others, not loudly, not dramatically, but consistently. Someone who had always been present. Someone who had been trusted without question. Someone whose proximity to the victim was so normal it had been invisible. In 1979, that closeness had protected them. In the present, it became the focal point. Detectives re-interviewed surviving witnesses, now older, less guarded, sometimes tired of carrying stories they'd never fully told. Memory is unreliable, but guilt has a way of sharpening certain details. Pause here, correction there, a look away at the wrong moment. Slowly, a new narrative began to emerge, one that didn't rely on strangers or chance encounters, but on something far more unsettling. The idea that the danger had never come from outside the home. As the investigation deepened, the tone shifted. This was no longer about finding a missing person. It was about exposing a family secret that had been sealed under layers of denial and time. Records were subpoenaed. Old bank statements re-examined. Property searches conducted with technology that could see disturbances in soil invisible to the naked eye. The past, once quiet, began to make noise. And with every new discovery, the same question echoed louder than ever. How many people had known, and how many had chosen not to see? By the time the cold case unit prepared to move forward, the story had transformed completely. What began as a mysterious disappearance in a quiet Florida neighborhood was now something darker, more intimate, and far more devastating. The truth had not been lost. It had been protected. And in 1979, when the house fell silent and the lights stayed on, the secret had already been born, waiting patiently for the moment when time would finally run out. The revelation began with a phone call no one expected, a call that seemed ordinary at first. A tip from someone who claimed to have stumbled across old photographs in a storage locker, faded, yellowed, forgotten. The images were nothing dramatic at first glance. A smiling family at the beach, a birthday cake with candles still unlit, casual snapshots of everyday life. But there was something in the details, the subtle angles, the way the mother's expression lingered just a moment too long, her eyes slightly averted from the camera, that made the investigator pause. Context matters, they say, and context is everything in a cold case. That tiny pause became the first crack in a facade that had lasted decades. Every photograph was examined under the harsh, sterile light of the cold case office. Fingerprints dusted. Film developed again, scanned, enhanced. Digital tools revealed things that had been invisible to the naked eye in 1979. Shadows that shouldn't have been, objects that seemed out of place. One image, taken in the kitchen, captured the back of a figure in motion. At first glance, it seemed normal, but detectives recognized the motion. A gesture, habitual, a hand reaching toward a cabinet, a movement remembered from old interviews as the mother's own. Only it wasn't her. Not exactly. Someone else had been there. Someone close. Someone trusted. Meanwhile, the neighborhood memory resurfaced. People who hadn't spoken about the disappearance for decades started recounting details long buried in their subconscious. The ice cream man remembered the day he saw her walking alone, smiling, holding a small purse, just minutes before she vanished. A mail carrier remembered packages left at the porch, untouched for days. Packages that had never been retrieved. Each recollection was a thread, delicate and fraying, waiting for someone to pull. And pull they did. Investigators mapped every movement, every routine, every casual remark that might have seemed meaningless. They realized that the mother's life, so structured, so ordinary, had been threaded with tiny irregularities. Late nights she didn't account for, phone calls that weren't on records, casual errands that didn't appear on any schedule. Combined, they began to form a pattern, subtle but undeniable. Someone had exploited these minor deviations, someone who knew her rhythm, her habits, her trust. It was the children who finally provided a breakthrough, not through testimony, not through revelation, but through memory. Memories they didn't even know they were carrying. One of the children, now an adult, recalled an argument overheard as a child, muffled behind a door, words about control, fear, and shame. A phrase repeated, almost mantra-like. That didn't make sense then, but screamed truth now. It stays in the house, the adult remembered hearing. Nobody outside can know. That was it. That was the first whisper of the family secret, buried deep beneath innocence and fear. Detectives returned to the husband, older, slower, still composed, still measured. They confronted him not with accusation but with detail. They presented timelines reconstructed with modern precision, comparing old statements with newly surfaced evidence. Every hesitation was noted. Every adjustment in phrasing became significant. Slowly, the story began to crack. They didn't need a confession, at least not yet. They needed alignment, consistency, or lack thereof. Old friends, family acquaintances, even neighbors were revisited. Their statements, once thought peripheral, suddenly gained weight. The woman who had lived next door, who had once shrugged at the disappearance, now admitted to noticing subtle changes in the family dynamic before the vanishing. Tension at the dinner table, doors closing quietly, arguments muffled by thick walls. People who had seen the husband's behavior shift slightly, controlling, secretive, unusually careful, now became key witnesses. Financial records told another part of the story. Forensic accountants traced small, deliberate discrepancies. Funds shifted without explanation, checks deposited with vague notations, bills that seemed to disappear from the system entirely. It suggested planning, forethought, and above all, awareness that this disappearance would not be noticed immediately. Someone had relied on the trust of others, the invisibility of routine, and the assumption that families were inherently private to hide something monstrous. The more the cold case unit dug, the more layered the secret appeared. It was not just about one individual or a single act. It was structural, systemic. Behaviors ingrained, decisions made quietly over time, small acts that compounded until the event became inevitable. Investigators realized the family secret wasn't a single act of violence or malice. It was a culture of control, of silence, of appearances meticulously maintained until they could no longer hold. Evidence collected included old letters, diaries, and notes tucked away in drawers no one had thought to open. Handwriting was analyzed, phrasing compared. Subtle shifts in tone revealed a fear that had been masked by smiles, by routine, by the mundane rhythm of suburban life. One line stood out in particular. "If anyone ever finds out, everything falls apart." That line became a hinge, a pivot, around which decades of speculation and frustration now rotated. Then came the call from a retired detective who had worked the original case. He remembered a peculiar detail: a neighbor's car, seen parked irregularly near the house the night of the disappearance. At the time, it was dismissed as coincidence. Now, with modern mapping and time-stamped records, it became a critical touchpoint. Cross-referencing with interviews and financial records revealed that the car had belonged to someone within the household, someone previously assumed to be irrelevant. The cold case was no longer about a mystery stranger or random misfortune. It was about the people closest to the victim, people she trusted the most. DNA analysis, unthinkable in 1979, now entered the narrative. Samples preserved from the crime scene, a hair, a fiber, a trace of skin, were processed using technology that could identify individuals with near certainty. Results were staggering. The evidence didn't point outside the family. Pointed inward. The mother's disappearance, the years of silence, the carefully constructed alibis, all had been facilitated by the very people whose faces had once offered comfort. Investigators moved carefully, knowing that revelations of this nature have a ripple effect. Families fracture. Communities tremble. Truth carries a weight beyond justice. They documented every detail meticulously, creating a narrative that would survive scrutiny, legal challenge, and the inevitable disbelief. Interviews were conducted not only to confirm facts, but to assess emotional and psychological patterns, to understand how such a disappearance could remain hidden, unremarked, for decades. And still, the mother herself remained absent from the living world. Her story was reconstructed through traces, memories, and patterns, piecing together a reality she could no longer voice. Investigators felt a mix of triumph and horror. Triumph that the truth was finally emerging, horror at the magnitude of the deceit, the intimacy of betrayal. Cold cases have a way of speaking softly, almost cruelly, reminding us that time can preserve secrets as much as it erodes them. As part 2 of this story closes, the narrative is no longer a simple question of missing versus found. It has become a study of trust, of appearances, and of the lengths to which ordinary people will go to conceal truths that terrify them. Florida, 1979, may have been the year of her disappearance, but it is also the year the secret was born, dormant, patient, and ready to unsettle anyone who dares look too closely. It started with the basement, a room that had been ignored for decades, a storage space filled with boxes, old furniture, and the dust of forgotten years. Investigators entered cautiously, flashlights slicing through shadows, revealing corners where darkness seemed to have settled like a living thing. Every step stirred memories of the past, even though no one alive could fully recall the original scene. The smell of mildew mixed with old paper and fabric, and every creak of the floorboards echoed like a warning. Somewhere in that basement, the past waited patiently, and it knew it would be discovered in its own time. A loose floorboard caught a detective's attention. At first, it seemed trivial, easily explained. But intuition, the kind honed by years of chasing cold cases, screamed otherwise. Tools were retrieved. The board was lifted carefully, and underneath, a collection of items was found. Photographs, letters, and a small jewelry box, each piece unremarkable in isolation, but together forming a puzzle that had been silently waiting to be assembled. The photographs were not the casual snapshots of earlier discovery. These were staged, deliberate, intimate, showing moments in the family's life that had never been shared, images of tension and restraint masked as joy. The letters revealed conversations hidden from outsiders, coded language that hinted at fear, obedience, and secrets that could not leave the home. The jewelry box held a revelation that would chill even seasoned detectives. Inside were objects belonging to the mother: a locket, a wristwatch, and a folded piece of paper with handwriting that seemed familiar yet unsettling. The words were simple, almost banal, but their implication was anything but, "They will never know." I cannot trust anyone. The house holds the truth. Handwriting analysis confirmed the mother's script. She had left this message for herself, a warning, a testament, a cry into the void, but who it was intended for remained unclear. Was it a warning for the family, a note for the authorities, or simply an attempt to preserve sanity in a world that had become unknowable? Outside, the community stirred once more. Old neighbors began to remember things they had pushed aside. Noises at night, doors closed too quickly, arguments overheard in passing. Some feared the revelations, some felt guilt, others disbelief. They remembered the husband's careful composure, the children's quiet compliance, the mother's routine that had masked turmoil. Memories long suppressed now demanded attention. The cold case, dormant for decades, was now alive, and every citizen who had once assumed ignorance now carried fragments of the truth. Forensic evidence, re-examined under new technology, began to confirm what intuition had suggested. Fibers, hair, and trace materials collected from the basement, the kitchen, even the garden, matched with items stored elsewhere in the house. A pattern emerged. Movements that had been overlooked, entries and exits unrecorded. Subtle disturbances that pointed to deliberate concealment. Every piece fit together like a macabre puzzle, showing a choreography of secrecy perfected over years. The realization hit investigators hard. This was not a crime of impulse. It was calculated, meticulous, and intimately known to those closest to the victim. Interviews with surviving family members revealed layers previously unimaginable. Statements were cross-referenced with old reports. Contradictions were subtle, almost imperceptible, but consistent. A neighbor who had once said she saw nothing now admitted to glimpsing a figure in the yard late at night. A sibling, long silent, hinted at disagreements that had been hidden behind smiles, at tension that had never reached the surface. The cold case was no longer just about a disappearance. It was about the psychological architecture of concealment, a web spun so intricately that its threads had resisted discovery for decades. The husband's demeanor, once calm and measured, began to show cracks under the weight of renewed scrutiny. Casual gestures betrayed anxiety. Micro-expressions, imperceptible to most, were recorded and analyzed. Investigators began to see the subtle signs of someone who had carried a secret for decades. The half-smile that never reached the eyes, the slight hesitation before answering questions, the rapid shift of gaze when confronted with inconvenient truths. Patterns emerged not from confession, but from involuntary behavior, and these patterns formed a roadmap through the family's hidden history. Meanwhile, the children's memories became increasingly crucial. Details long dismissed as insignificant. A misplaced toy, a drawer left open, a comment overheard in passing, now resonated with meaning. Investigators reconstructed timelines based on these recollections, piecing together sequences of movement and interaction that had been invisible in 1979. The mother's last known whereabouts within the house were mapped with extraordinary precision, revealing moments when she had been watched, monitored, perhaps manipulated. The ordinary routines of family life, once comforting, were now instruments of secrecy. Technology played a decisive role. Enhanced imaging revealed anomalies in photographs that had been thought mundane. Audio recordings, once muffled and indistinct, were analyzed for subtle inflections, revealing tension, hesitation, and fear previously unnoticed. Every new layer of analysis brought investigators closer to understanding not only what had happened, but why it had been hidden for so long. The pattern was clear. The disappearance had been carefully orchestrated by someone who knew the family's rhythms better than anyone else. As the investigation deepened, the psychological dimension became unavoidable. Experts were consulted to analyze behaviors, statements, and interactions. The findings were chilling. A system of control, cultivated over years, had allowed secrecy to flourish. Fear, trust, obligation, and manipulation intertwined to create a perfect storm in which a person could vanish without immediate detection. The cold case was no longer simply a question of who or what. It had become a study in human behavior, a portrait of how ordinary life can mask extraordinary deception. And yet, the human element remained central. Detectives returned repeatedly to the family, each conversation revealing new layers, each glance, pause, and gesture contributing to a growing mosaic of truth. Relationships, once assumed benign, were now examined for power dynamics, hidden resentments, and protective instincts that had warped into complicity. Every word was analyzed, every silence noted, every hesitation mapped against known timelines. By the end of Part 3, the story had grown into something vast, something that transcended the mere facts of disappearance. It was a study in trust and betrayal, in the dangers of what is left unsaid, in the subtlety of human deception. The cold case, decades old, was no longer a static file in a drawer. It was alive, speaking through shadows, whispers, and traces, demanding recognition. Florida, 1979, had long since faded into history, but the echoes of that summer, that house, that family secret, were louder than ever, reverberating through every revelation, every discovery, every lingering question that refused to be silenced. The attic had always been a place children feared, a repository for forgotten toys, dusty trunks, and the echoes of family secrets. Investigators climbed the narrow staircase with flashlights cutting through the dim, each step a reminder that history lives in hidden spaces. Dust motes swirled in the beam, dancing like tiny specters in the stagnant air. Every trunk, every box, every folded blanket was scrutinized. Nothing was too trivial because in cold cases, the mundane often carries the truth. And then it was found. A journal, tucked behind a row of old suitcases, its leather cracked with age. The cover bore no name, no signature, only the faint imprint of a hand that had pressed too hard, as if the writer had wanted to leave a mark on something permanent. Inside, the pages were filled with handwriting, precise and careful, interspersed with scrawls of emotion that leaked into the margins. Fear, confusion, and coded warnings spilled across the paper, fragments of a mind trying to map chaos into order, trying to record a reality that was slipping further from reach. Lines jumped out at the investigators, phrases that seemed almost prophetic in their clarity. They watched too closely. I cannot trust what I see. Everything depends on silence. The handwriting was unmistakably hers, the mother's, each word a pulse of her presence, frozen in time. It became immediately apparent that this journal wasn't just personal reflection. It was documentation, a guide, a record of tension, surveillance, and subtle threats that had existed under the guise of normal family life. Meanwhile, evidence from the basement and kitchen was cross-referenced with these new revelations. Patterns emerged that were almost invisible to the untrained eye. Times, movements, objects manipulated, notes placed strategically to mislead or protect. It was as if the entire house had been a stage, and the mother's life a performance controlled by unseen hands. Investigators began to realize that this was not a story of random disappearance. It was deliberate, orchestrated, and executed by those she trusted most. Old friends were called again, now decades older, their recollections colored by time but sharpened by hindsight. They remembered subtle shifts, laughter that seemed forced, glances exchanged when the mother entered a room, conversations cut short without explanation. A neighbor who had once shrugged at the disappearance now spoke of a visit in the weeks leading up to it, when she noticed the husband pacing late at night, the children unusually quiet. Everyone had assumed normalcy. Now, those assumptions were being dismantled piece by piece. Investigators turned their attention back to the husband, whose calm composure in interviews had previously masked nervousness. Micro-expressions were analyzed, speech patterns dissected, and inconsistencies documented. Every gesture, every hesitation, every choice of words became evidence. The more they probed, the more the narrative shifted from speculation to certainty. He had known, had manipulated, had ensured that silence would protect him. Cold cases rarely reveal such intimate betrayal, and yet here it was, undeniable and raw. DNA testing added another layer. Samples preserved from 1979, once thought useless, now yielded results that confirmed familial connections in unexpected places. Fibers matched clothing long forgotten, traces of skin aligned with those in the journal, and the pieces of a puzzle that had seemed unsolvable began to lock together. The pattern was both horrifying and precise. This was no impulsive act. It was calculated, maintained, and hidden in plain sight. The children, now adults, were re-interviewed under controlled conditions. Memories surfaced, the arguments behind closed doors, the whispered instructions, the fear that had been taught rather than felt instinctively. Every recollection, no matter how minor, helped to reconstruct the timeline with stunning precision. Investigators could trace movement through the house, interactions between family members, moments where decisions were made that would ultimately lead to the disappearance. The cold case was beginning to breathe, each exhale revealing a deeper layer of truth. Meanwhile, outside the house, the community began to react as details leaked. Journal entries, photographs, and forensic results reached those willing to listen. Shock and disbelief rippled through neighbors who had once assumed ignorance, replaced by a dawning recognition. The disappearance had not been random, nor had it been an accident. It had been a secret carefully guarded, a family's truth hidden under decades of normalcy. Fear mingled with fascination. People wondered how much they had missed, what they had ignored, and how many other facades in their lives might conceal the unthinkable. By mid-part 4, investigators had reconstructed the night of the disappearance with chilling clarity. Movements, conversations, and actions aligned across multiple sources: the journal, photographs, interviews, forensic data. The mother had attempted to act, to escape, to assert control in the few moments available to her. But the household's dynamics, honed over years, anticipated resistance. Every possible path to freedom had been blocked, every plea subtly managed, every action monitored. The disappearance was the culmination of a system, not a single event. The cold case unit documented everything meticulously. They recorded interviews, cataloged evidence, analyzed behavioral patterns, and cross-referenced every new piece with historical data. Nothing was dismissed, nothing assumed irrelevant. The case had moved beyond disappearance. It had become an investigation into the psychology of secrecy, the architecture of control, and the fragility of trust within a family. Every revelation, every small discovery, deepened the horror and the fascination. And still, the mother herself remained absent, her voice preserved only in journal entries, photographs, and fleeting recollections. Investigators felt her presence like a shadow, guiding them through the intricacies of a life interrupted, a secret concealed, and a truth that refused to remain hidden. Florida, 1979, had long since passed, but its echoes reverberated with relentless intensity. Every corner of the house, every page of the journal, every trace of memory contributed to a narrative that was as intimate as it was horrifying. By the end of Part 4, the cold case was no longer about missing persons. It was about the architecture of a family secret, the careful orchestration of silence, and the haunting realization that the people we trust most may be the very ones who conceal the darkest truths. The story pressed forward relentlessly, each revelation a pulse, each discovery a jolt, each shadow in the house a whisper of the secret that had waited patiently for decades to be exposed. The living room, once the heart of ordinary family life, now became a forensic map of obsession and control. Every cushion, every curtain, every rug was examined as though it might hold the mother's presence, her resistance, or her fear. Investigators noted the smallest irregularities: a scratch on the wooden floor that didn't match furniture placement, a discolored area on the carpet, slight indentations in the dust where objects had been moved or hidden. Each anomaly became a clue, a breadcrumb leading into the intricate web that had been spun decades earlier. Photographs taken in 1979 were revisited, this time with digital enhancement that revealed hidden details invisible to the human eye. Shadows fell in unusual patterns, reflecting someone's deliberate positioning. Figures were captured in the background, their faces obscured, gestures subtle but telling. A chair shifted slightly between frames. A hand appeared at a window for a split second. These minor details, once dismissed, now screamed for attention, revealing a choreography of observation, manipulation, and suppression. The cold case investigators returned to the children. Their recollections had shifted, sharpened by time and by therapy, and now provided patterns that were nearly impossible to ignore. Repressed memories surfaced. Doors closed too quickly, whispered commands, forbidden rooms, and unspoken rules. What had seemed childhood paranoia was now an unbroken chain of control and fear. Each memory was cross-referenced with photographs, forensic evidence, and statements from neighbors, gradually creating a timeline of the mother's final hours that was both horrifying and precise. Financial anomalies uncovered months earlier began to make sense. Bills left unpaid, money diverted, assets quietly shifted. These were not oversights. They were part of the system that allowed the disappearance to occur without immediate detection. Investigators realized that the household had operated as a closed ecosystem, where trust, obedience, and appearances were manipulated to protect a secret no one outside the walls could comprehend. Every routine, every habit, every act of conformity had contributed to the mother's vanishing. The husband, now decades older, was subjected to advanced interview techniques. Detectives noticed subtle tics, a slight tightening of the jaw, a rapid blink, a nervous shift in posture. When questioned about the night in question, they pressed further, not with accusation, but with precision. Reconstructing movement sequences, timelines, and family interactions, they revealed inconsistencies that could no longer be ignored. Slowly, methodically, the structure of deception began to unravel. The attic, basement, and kitchen were now linked in a single narrative. Each space held evidence of the mother's attempts to resist control. Traces of objects she had hidden, notes she had left behind, moments she had tried to create distance. Yet every act had been anticipated. Doors, windows, and hallways had been manipulated. Movements monitored. Trust exploited. What investigators were witnessing was not random chance but premeditation. The household had been an instrument of concealment, fine-tuned over years to ensure secrecy. Interviews with neighbors painted a chilling backdrop. People recalled details that had seemed inconsequential. The husband walking the children to school at odd hours, a car parked for hours at a neighbor's driveway, unexplained deliveries. Alone, these observations meant little. Together, they created a lattice of observation and control. The disappearance had not been a singular event. It was the product of years of small manipulations that converged in one moment. The mother's journal remained central. Investigators analyzed the entries in granular detail, noting repeated patterns, coded language, and references to control, fear, and surveillance. One line stood out: "They watch when I move, even when I sleep. The walls have eyes." It was a metaphor and a warning, a statement of reality she could not escape. When cross-referenced with forensic evidence, the writing confirmed that the home itself had been both protector and prison, a stage for secrets and surveillance orchestrated by the very people she trusted. DNA evidence added a terrifying dimension. Samples, once considered marginal, now confirmed familial proximity at specific locations within the home. Fibers from clothing matched traces in hidden spaces. A wristwatch retrieved from the attic showed subtle signs of tampering, aligning with entries in the journal that referenced keeping track, controlling time. Each finding, technical and precise, added layers to the story, painting a picture of a disappearance meticulously designed and executed from within the family circle. The cold case team documented the psychological structure behind the family's actions. Control, fear, manipulation, and silence formed a system that allowed the disappearance to go unnoticed. Every relationship was scrutinized. Parent to child, husband to wife, siblings to one another. Patterns of behavior emerged, revealing a chilling orchestration of obedience and secrecy. The household had functioned like a machine, each member a component, each movement accounted for, each silence deliberate. And yet, amid this meticulous reconstruction, the human cost was undeniable. The mother's absence cast a shadow over the family, shaping lives, emotions, and memories for decades. Investigators felt her presence in every room, Her story told not through bodies or witnesses alone, but through traces, patterns, and the quiet desperation that clung to the house itself. Florida, 1979, was more than a year of disappearance. It was the birth of a secret, a system, and a legacy that demanded exposure. By the conclusion of Part 5, the narrative had grown dense, intricate, and unflinching. The cold case was no longer a question of missing versus found. It had become a study in manipulation, a portrait of control, and a haunting reminder that the most dangerous secrets often reside where we least expect, inside the walls of a home, behind the faces of those we trust, and in the silences we pretend not to hear. Every discovery pushed the story forward, every clue added weight, and the suspense mounted, pressing the listener to lean in, to feel the tension, and to confront a truth that had waited 40 years to be revealed. It was a photograph that changed everything. Not new, not staged, not previously undiscovered, simply seen through the lens of technology and scrutiny unavailable in 1979. A family portrait, taken the year before the disappearance, revealed a detail so subtle it had gone unnoticed for decades. A shadow behind the mother, small, almost imperceptible, a hand resting lightly on her shoulder. At first glance, ordinary. Upon closer inspection, deliberate, protective, controlling. The investigators didn't know, but they knew it mattered. And in cold cases, everything matters. Investigators began cross-referencing the shadow with every movement, every location, every known interaction. Phone records, once sparse, were reconstructed through archival notes and memory statements. Every visit, every errand, every friend's house, every school run. All reconstructed to see who was nearby, who was watching, and who might have facilitated the disappearance. The threads, long hidden, began to converge. The pattern was no longer abstract. It was a web, each strand taut with purpose and intent, connecting the family in ways that were unseen but unmistakable. The children's memories became sharper under questioning. One recalled a drawer she had never opened, its contents hinted at but never revealed. Another remembered a key she had been told never to use. A third remembered overhearing words she didn't understand, warnings whispered late at night, repeated with gravity, like a mantra. Individually, these details were fragments. Together, they painted a picture of life under watchful eyes, a mother constrained by invisible walls, and a disappearance orchestrated by familiarity, proximity, and trust betrayed. Evidence in the basement took on a new dimension. Investigators found slight discolorations on the floor, previously dismissed, that aligned perfectly with the mother's last known movements. Objects that had been shifted subtly. A chair moved an inch, a rug wrinkled, revealed a choreography of surveillance and control. Each subtle detail reinforced the theory. This was no random disappearance. It was a meticulously planned act, executed by someone with intimate knowledge of daily routines, who understood how to manipulate spaces, silence witnesses, and create an illusion of normalcy. The husband, under renewed scrutiny, began to falter. Micro-expressions betrayed anxiety. Inconsistent accounts of minor details, previously overlooked, were now magnified by modern analysis. Investigators noticed the almost imperceptible hesitation before answering questions about specific rooms, certain objects, or fleeting interactions. Every shift in posture, every avoidance of eye contact was logged, compared to old interviews, and measured against the reconstructed timeline. The cold case, once dormant, now moved with relentless precision toward clarity. DNA and fiber evidence added corroboration. Traces found in hidden compartments matched items from the mother's belongings, aligning with the journal's references to concealment and observation. The science, silent and objective, confirmed what instinct and investigation had long suspected. The disappearance was orchestrated from within, using the trust and proximity inherent in family life as a tool for concealment. Neighbors were interviewed again. Memories long suppressed surfaced under gentle prompting. The mailman recalled irregular packages, delivered at odd times. The ice cream man remembered a figure in the yard he had dismissed as a child. Friends recounted subtle interactions that, when combined with forensic data, suggested foreknowledge, coordination, and complicity. The once quiet neighborhood, seemingly innocent, now revealed shadows of events previously hidden, traces of fear and manipulation that had persisted for decades. Psychologists were brought in to reconstruct the household dynamics. Patterns of control, obedience, and subtle coercion became evident. Every small act, a directive given, a glance exchanged, a routine reinforced, was now seen as a mechanism in a larger system of suppression. The mother's disappearance, once perceived as a singular event, was now understood as the culmination of years of psychological architecture designed to constrain, monitor, and ultimately erase her presence from view. And yet, despite this growing clarity, the human dimension remained haunting. The mother's voice persisted in journal entries, photographs, and recollections. She was present in absence, guiding investigators with traces of emotion, fragments of thought, and warnings inscribed in secrecy. The cold case was no longer merely a file. It was a living story of control, fear, and intimate betrayal, unfolding decades after the original disappearance. By the conclusion of Part 6, the narrative had intensified. The cold case had transformed from an unsolved mystery into a study of human behavior under surveillance and control, a portrait of how ordinary life can conceal extraordinary deception. Each discovery, each clue, each subtle revelation pushed the investigation forward, illuminating the dark architecture of a family secret that had waited 40 years to emerge. Florida, 1979, may have been the year of the disappearance, but its shadow, its secret, and its revelation stretched forward in time, unrelenting, unbroken, and chillingly intimate. The garage held secrets that had gone unnoticed for decades. A space once used for cars, bicycles, and tools now became a chamber of revelations. Investigators moved slowly, flashlights scanning every corner, each beam revealing dust, cobwebs, and the occasional forgotten object. On the surface, it looked ordinary. But the cold case had taught them that ordinary hides extraordinary truths. A toolbox shifted slightly, revealing a small envelope tucked beneath it. It was yellowed with age, edges frayed, and inside was a note, brief, cryptic, but unmistakably written by the mother. "They will never hear me. I have tried." The handwriting trembled slightly, a ghost of fear frozen in ink. Photographs from the garage were compared with the note, and investigators noticed something unsettling. Shadows that didn't match the furniture, slight smudges on surfaces that suggested movement, and an object, a key, placed deliberately in frame. It was the same key the children had recalled, one they had been told never to use. Suddenly, the note, the key, the shadow, and the movement patterns converged into something terrifyingly coherent. The mother had known she was being watched, had attempted to communicate, and had tried to leave evidence of the control imposed upon her. The husband's alibi fractured under scrutiny. Old statements were compared with new forensic evidence. Minor inconsistencies, times of arrival, departures, phone call sequences became critical markers. Micro-expressions, slight shifts in tone, and pauses during interviews revealed anxiety, discomfort, and the tension of someone carrying a decades-old secret. Investigators began to map behavior as a function of control, noticing patterns repeated over years. Gestures, phrases, moments of silence, all orchestrated to maintain the facade of normalcy while hiding the unimaginable. The children, now adults, provided additional layers of insight. They recalled details of conversations, minor commands, rules imposed without explanation. Objects were hidden, doors locked, messages communicated through implication rather than words. Each memory, once seemingly insignificant, now helped reconstruct a map of constraint and manipulation. Investigators could trace the mother's movements through the home, seeing where she had tried to assert agency and where she had been subtly obstructed. The cold case became an intricate puzzle of observation, coercion, and deception. Forensic evidence supported the narrative. Fibers found in the garage matched clothing items discovered in the attic. Dust patterns indicated movement inconsistent with ordinary use. A wristwatch found in the basement, previously overlooked, aligned with the mother's journal entries describing time kept under watch. Technology allowed investigators to reconstruct angles, shadows, and movement sequences, confirming that the disappearance had not been random but methodical, premeditated, and executed by someone intimately familiar with household routines. Neighbors remembered subtle anomalies. The ice cream truck stopping at unusual times. A neighbor's car parked longer than expected. Children quiet in the yard when normally playful. These recollections, insignificant alone, gained meaning in the context of forensic and testimonial evidence. The cold case transformed from a simple disappearance into a story of surveillance, control, and intimate betrayal. Every human action, no matter how minor, became a potential thread in the fabric of secrecy. Psychologists weighed in, analyzing behavior patterns, family dynamics, and interactions reconstructed from interviews, photographs, and physical evidence. They identified consistent behaviors of dominance, control, and manipulation, culminating in the mother's disappearance. The home had functioned as a theater of secrecy, each participant a performer, each routine rehearsed, each silence deliberate. The family structure, previously assumed benign, revealed itself as an instrument of concealment, refined over years. The attic, basement, kitchen, and now garage created a network of clues, each reinforcing the other. Investigators traced paths, reconstructed sequences, and identified points where the mother had attempted resistance. Subtle gestures, misdirections, and hidden messages. Her journal provided context, her handwriting revealed emotion, and forensic traces confirmed interaction. Together, they painted a portrait of a disappearance orchestrated from within, intimate, precise, and terrifying in its efficiency. By the conclusion of Part 7, the cold case had transcended mere investigation. It was now a study of trust, fear, and the devastating power of secrecy within a family. The narrative pressed relentlessly forward, each discovery amplifying tension, each clue illuminating the psychological architecture of control. Florida, 1979, may have been the year of disappearance, but the echoes of that summer, of the mother's silent struggle, and of the family secret, resonated with relentless intensity, shaping the investigation, the memories, and the community itself in ways that refused to be ignored. The study was untouched for decades, a room filled with shelves of books, stacks of papers, and the lingering smell of mothballs and dust. Investigators stepped inside, flashlights sweeping across spines and scattered documents, each surface a potential witness to the past. Nothing seemed immediately significant until a single sheet of paper, yellowed with age, fell from a stack of ledgers. The handwriting was careful, deliberate, unmistakably hers. The message was simple. They will not stop me from leaving traces. One day, someone will understand. It was a confession of fear and defiance wrapped into a single line, a testament to resistance even when trapped. Photographs tucked between bookshelves revealed a sequence of events the family had assumed invisible. A shadow at the window, a figure moving in the background, a wrist peeking from behind a curtain. All captured but unnoticed, all telling a story of surveillance, fear, and constraint. Each image, when analyzed with modern technology, revealed patterns of control, small manipulations designed to obscure truth. The mother had been monitored at every turn, her autonomy subtly blocked, her movements anticipated. The disappearance was no accident. It had been carefully orchestrated, executed by someone who understood her routines intimately. The husband's statements, revisited under modern interrogation techniques, began to crack. Minor inconsistencies were amplified by the investigators' cross-referencing of old records, photographs, and newly discovered documents. A time when he claimed to have been outmatched, no external corroboration. A movement within the house he described differed from physical evidence. Micro-expressions betrayed unease, tension, and subtle defensiveness. Cues invisible to the casual observer, but unmistakable to trained eyes. The story was shifting. The mystery that had survived decades was now bending toward revelation. The children's recollections added layers of chilling clarity. They remembered subtle restrictions. Drawers they were told never to open, objects removed from sight, conversations halted when the mother entered the room. At the time, these rules seemed ordinary. Now, decades later, they revealed a pattern of control so pervasive that freedom had been systematically denied. Investigators could trace the mother's movements through the house, seeing where she had attempted to resist and where those efforts had been silently but effectively suppressed. Forensic evidence in the study reinforced the narrative. Dust patterns, fibers, and DNA traces all aligned with movements recorded in the mother's journal. Her handwriting indicated awareness of observation, and the physical traces confirmed monitoring and constraint. The house, once a sanctuary, had become a stage for concealment and surveillance. Every room, attic, basement, kitchen, garage, now the study, contributed to a network of evidence illustrating an orchestrated disappearance from within, intimate and methodical. Neighbors recalled subtle anomalies. Package left on the porch unclaimed for days. A delivery at unusual hours. A child unusually quiet on the way to school. Alone, each detail seemed trivial. Together, they mapped the contours of fear and manipulation, supporting the emerging theory. The disappearance had not been the act of an outsider, but the product of a family system carefully designed to maintain secrecy. Psychologists analyzing the family dynamics identified patterns of dominance, subtle coercion, and control. The mother's attempts at resistance were met with anticipation, the household functioning as a mechanism of constraint. Obedience, fear, and loyalty had been manipulated into silence. The cold case transformed into a study not just of a disappearance, but of human behavior, trust, and the devastating potential of control within a family unit. Newly discovered letters added tension. Written in the weeks before her disappearance, they hinted at plans, strategies, and concealed communication. The mother had left breadcrumbs, small messages that she hoped would one day reveal the truth. Investigators traced connections between these letters and previously recovered photographs, notes, and journal entries. The threads, invisible for decades, now converged into a chilling narrative. The disappearance had been anticipated, planned, and executed by someone inside the home, someone closest to her, whose proximity had been both protection and prison. By the conclusion of Part 8, the cold case had evolved from a missing person file to an intricate map of manipulation, surveillance, and betrayal. Each discovery intensified the tension, each clue deepened the horror, and the narrative pushed relentlessly toward the heart of the family secret. Florida, 1979, was no longer a distant year. It was alive in shadows, whispers, and traces, a warning that the darkest truths often reside where trust is absolute, and silence is cultivated over decades. It was a drawer in the dining room, long assumed empty, that finally whispered the truth. Investigators opened it carefully, flashlights sweeping over faded napkins and old receipts. At the back, beneath layers of paper, was a small, leather-bound notebook. Its cover was cracked, corners worn. Inside, pages recorded events with startling clarity. Observations, times, movements, and notes on conversations. The handwriting was meticulous, almost obsessive, revealing a mind constantly cataloging, watching, and surviving. The mother had left it deliberately, knowing someone, someday, might uncover it. Every entry told a story of subtle resistance and imposed control. Notes about meals she did not eat, doors she did not open, conversations interrupted, gestures observed, all meticulously recorded. One line stood out: "I move as if unseen, but every shadow knows me." It was a confession, a cry, and a map all at once. Investigators felt the weight of decades pressing from the page, realizing that the mother had been acutely aware of the surveillance, of the manipulation, and had attempted to leave a record without being detected. The husband, confronted with a timeline reconstructed from journals, photographs, and forensic evidence, began to falter. Micro-expressions betrayed anxiety. A brief shift of posture, a twitch of the mouth, hesitation in voice. All cues that spoke louder than words. Each inconsistency between his statements and documented evidence revealed layers of orchestration. The disappearance was not a random act, nor an accident. It was premeditated, executed by someone with intimate knowledge of routines, habits, and trust. The very people she loved, the very people she relied upon, had been instruments in her erasure. The children, now fully grown, recounted memories long buried. A misplaced key, a locked drawer, whispered warnings from their mother. Conversations abruptly stopped. Fragments that had made little sense in childhood now illuminated the structure of control. Investigators traced the mother's path through the home, noting moments she attempted resistance, small acts of defiance that were anticipated, blocked, or observed. Every memory, no matter how minor, became a crucial piece of the puzzle. Forensic evidence aligned with every revelation. Fibers from clothing matched hidden corners, DNA traces confirmed proximity, and dust patterns indicated repeated movements. Objects shifted subtly, doors opened or closed inconsistently, items placed strategically. The house itself had been a tool, a mechanism of concealment and surveillance. Each room, attic, basement, kitchen, garage, study, now the dining room, contributed to a larger picture. A disappearance planned and executed from within. Neighbors recalled minor but telling details. A car parked too long, a figure observed in the yard at night, children unusually quiet. Observations dismissed for decades now gained profound significance. Combined with forensic and testimonial evidence, these recollections revealed the contours of fear and manipulation that had enabled the disappearance. What had once seemed normal, mundane, or coincidental now pointed unmistakably to orchestration. Psychologists studying the case identified patterns of coercion, control, and dominance. Subtle instructions, silent expectations, and imposed obedience created a system in which the mother's autonomy had been systematically constrained. Her disappearance was the culmination of decades of psychological architecture, executed by those closest to her, using trust and proximity as instruments of concealment. Each layer of secrecy had been carefully maintained, creating a house that was both home and prison. Letters recovered alongside the notebook provided additional insight. Written weeks before her disappearance, they outlined small acts of defiance, subtle communications, and hidden messages intended to survive beyond the home. Investigators traced these writings to previously discovered photographs, journals, and physical evidence, each thread weaving into a coherent narrative. The mother had attempted to leave clues, to assert agency, to ensure that her story would eventually be told. By the end of Part 9, the cold case had transformed into something more than a disappearance. It had become an intricate study of control, fear, and betrayal, of human behavior manipulated and orchestrated with precision. Florida, 1979, was no longer just a year of mystery. It was a living story of surveillance, hidden intentions, and the devastating power of secrets cultivated in silence over decades. Each discovery pressed the investigation forward, each clue intensified the tension, and every shadow in the house seemed to echo with the mother's presence, her warnings, and her unbroken will. The backyard, once a place of summer play and neighborly gatherings, now became a scene of scrutiny. Investigators paced the uneven grass, flashlights slicing through shadows cast by old oak trees. Every stone, every fence post, every flower bed was examined. Small disturbances, overlooked for decades, were now crucial. A patch of dirt that didn't match the surrounding soil, footprints faintly visible under infrared light, remnants of fabric caught on the fence, signs of movement, concealment, and intervention. The backyard had witnessed something the world never saw, and it was ready to speak. Among the leaves, under a rose bush, a small, rusted tin box was uncovered. Inside lay letters, carefully folded, written in the mother's precise handwriting. They spoke of fear, of warnings, of attempts to leave traces without being caught. One line leapt off the page. "I am watched everywhere, even when I think I am free. Trust no one." Investigators felt the weight of decades of silence pressing down as they realized she had documented the terror she endured, the surveillance, the manipulation, the very choreography of her disappearance. The husband was brought back for further questioning. Confronted with photographs, journals, and letters from the backyard discovery, his composure began to crack. Minor hesitations became glaring, inconsistencies multiplied, and his voice, once calm and measured, quivered under scrutiny. The investigators noted each micro-expression, each shift of weight, each blink. Cold cases rarely expose such intimate betrayal, and here it was undeniable. Someone closest to her had orchestrated her disappearance with precision and forethought. The children, fully grown, provided details that filled in previously unseen gaps. Memories resurfaced. Whispered instructions, rooms they were forbidden to enter, items removed from sight, hushed arguments. What had seemed like ordinary childhood rules now revealed a system of control designed to isolate, manipulate, and suppress. Investigators traced the mother's movements through the house and yard, moments of attempted escape, subtle resistance, and carefully blocked opportunities. The disappearance was not an event but a sequence, a choreography, a plan executed over time. Forensic analysis confirmed the narrative. Soil samples aligned with footprints. Fibers from the mother's clothing matched traces on branches and leaves. Dust patterns indicated repeated surveillance. Every detail corroborated the notion of a carefully managed environment, a household functioning as a controlled system to conceal, manipulate, and erase. The cold case, once a mystery of absence, was now a story of deliberate orchestration, intimate knowledge, and meticulous execution. Neighbors came forward with recollections long suppressed. A car parked unusually, deliveries arriving at odd times, children quiet when normally boisterous. Each memory, previously dismissed, gained significance. Combined with forensic data, photographs, and journals, a picture of pervasive surveillance and control emerged. The mother's disappearance was no longer a simple mystery. It was a product of careful planning and manipulation, executed by those closest to her, using trust as a weapon and familiarity as a tool. Psychologists analyzing the family dynamics confirmed patterns of coercion, control, and manipulation. Every interaction, command, and restriction within the household contributed to the system that ultimately led to the disappearance. Obedience and fear had been cultivated, silence enforced, and the mother's autonomy systematically denied. The house, once a sanctuary, had functioned as both stage and prison, each room a node in a network of control that spanned decades. Letters, journals, photographs, and forensic evidence were combined into a coherent narrative. Investigators reconstructed the mother's final movements, her attempts to assert agency, and the interventions that blocked her escape. Each discovery intensified the psychological portrait of the household. Dominance, fear, subtle coercion, and betrayal interwoven to create an environment in which disappearance could occur without immediate detection. By the end of Part 10, the cold case had escalated to the brink of revelation. The backyard, like every other part of the house, bore witness to manipulation and secrecy. Florida, 1979, was no longer a distant memory but a living landscape of shadows, whispers, and traces. Each clue uncovered pressed investigators closer to the truth. Each revelation deepened the tension, and every corner of the home seemed to echo with the mother's presence, her warnings, and her unbroken will. The story was nearing its peak, the secrets poised to emerge, and the family legacy of silence was about to be confronted in full. It was the master bedroom that finally held the key. A room untouched, meticulously maintained, preserved in the same state for decades, yet now alive with revelations. Investigators moved through it cautiously, flashlights tracing the edges of the bed, the nightstands, the closet. Every object was catalogued, every surface examined. The air was heavy, dense with dust and decades of secrecy. A faint smell lingered, metallic and dry, subtle but unmistakable. The scent of something long hidden. A dresser drawer, locked all these years, yielded its secret. Inside were letters, photographs, and small items, trinkets, tokens, and notes. all written by the mother in careful handwriting. One note was particularly chilling. "If anyone reads this, know I tried to fight. I tried to leave breadcrumbs. The walls watched my every move, but I will not be erased completely." The message conveyed fear, defiance, and a meticulous awareness of surveillance. She had anticipated discovery, even decades later, and had prepared to expose the truth when the time came. Investigators cross-referenced these notes with photographs found throughout the house. Shadows, gestures, movements captured in frames that had once seemed mundane. Patterns emerged. The mother's attempts to assert agency, the careful orchestration of her disappearance, and the interventions that thwarted her escape. The house, once a home, had become a stage for control, manipulation, and silence. Every object, every corner, every room had played a role in the architecture of concealment. The husband was confronted once more, now faced with the cumulative weight of evidence. Journals, letters, photographs, forensic analysis, and reconstructed timelines. His composure began to unravel. Hesitations, shifts in posture, and fleeting expressions of fear betrayed him. Inconsistencies previously dismissed now formed a coherent pattern. Proximity, knowledge, and deliberate action. The disappearance had not been random. It had been carefully executed from within, by someone with intimate knowledge of routines, trust, and vulnerability. The children, adults now, contributed final pieces to the puzzle. Recollections surfaced of whispered commands, doors locked without explanation, objects removed or hidden, subtle instructions enforced under threat or coercion. These memories, long suppressed, aligned perfectly with the mother's notes and forensic evidence. Investigators could trace her attempts at resistance, her moments of defiance, and the interventions that prevented her escape. The disappearance was revealed as a calculated sequence, orchestrated over time, perfected through control and observation. Forensic evidence corroborated everything. Fibers, DNA traces, dust patterns, and footprints formed a detailed map of movement and interaction. Items hidden for decades aligned with journal entries and letters, confirming surveillance, obstruction, and manipulation. The home, once considered ordinary, was now a meticulously documented instrument of concealment. The architecture of control was clear, precise, and horrifying. Neighbors' memories were reevaluated in light of these findings. Minor anomalies, a car parked at odd hours, unusual deliveries, children behaving differently, suddenly gained significance. Combined with forensic data and testimonial evidence, they revealed a network of observation, control, and complicity. The mother's disappearance was no longer an isolated event. It was the product of a household system designed to maintain secrecy at all costs. Psychologists confirmed patterns of dominance, coercion, and manipulation. The mother's autonomy had been systematically denied. Every gesture, command, and restriction had contributed to an environment in which disappearance could occur without immediate detection. The home functioned as both protector and prison, with silence cultivated over decades as a tool of control. The mother's attempts to leave traces, journals, letters, notes, were her final acts of defiance, anticipating that one day, someone would uncover the truth. By the end of Part 11, the cold case had reached its emotional and investigative crescendo. Florida, 1979, was no longer a distant year of mystery. It had become an intimate portrait of fear, control, and betrayal. Each room, each object, each shadow, each note spoke of a life constrained, a disappearance orchestrated, and a secret maintained for decades. The mother's presence lingered in every corner, her will unbroken, her warnings revealed. The story pressed relentlessly forward, culminating in the full exposure of a family secret that had haunted a community for over 40 years, leaving investigators and listeners alike with the chilling realization that the darkest truths often reside where trust is absolute, silence is cultivated, and fear is woven into the very fabric of home. The attic, the basement, the study, the garage, the backyard. Every corner of the house now whispered truths that had waited decades to be heard. Investigators moved methodically, documenting shadows, dust patterns, and objects left deliberately, as though the mother had anticipated each discovery. Every detail aligned with journals, letters, and photographs, forming a lattice of proof. Control, surveillance, manipulation, and betrayal, all orchestrated by the hands she trusted most. It was meticulous, chilling, intimate. A final box, overlooked in the far corner of the attic, revealed a trove of photographs and notes stacked neatly, preserved in order. Each photograph told a story, the mother's fleeting expressions of fear, gestures of resistance, moments captured when she thought no one was watching. Notes accompanying the images detailed events, timelines, and small observations, coded yet precise, offering a map of her struggle and her awareness. One note read, "I cannot escape, but I will not be erased. Someone will see. Someone will know." The words struck investigators with their raw urgency, a voice echoing through decades of silence. The husband, confronted with this accumulated evidence, finally faltered completely. Micro-expressions that had been subtle became glaring. Every lie, every hesitation, every shift of body language confirmed the orchestration investigators had long suspected. The disappearance, long attributed to accident or misfortune, was revealed as deliberate, a chilling act of control executed from within the family. The intimate betrayal was undeniable, each revelation a hammer striking against decades of assumed normalcy. The children, their memories resurfacing with shocking clarity, provided crucial confirmation. They recalled whispered conversations, objects hidden or removed, instructions enforced without explanation. Memories that once seemed inconsequential now illuminated the architecture of constraint. Investigators traced the mother's movements, noting moments of attempted agency, subtle defiance, and the obstacles she faced at every turn. Every memory aligned with the physical and documentary evidence. Forensic analysis tied the entire narrative together. Fibers matched clothing found decades earlier, dust and dirt patterns revealed repeated surveillance and movement. DNA traces confirmed proximity in key locations. Objects hidden in attics, basements, drawers, and behind furniture now made sense. The house was no longer merely a home. It was a meticulously documented instrument of concealment and control, each room a node in a network designed to erase her presence while preserving the illusion of normalcy. Neighbors' recollections, once dismissed, now painted a fuller picture. A car parked unusually, deliveries at odd hours, children behaving quietly when normally playful, all signs of surveillance and manipulation. Combined with journals, letters, and forensic data, these memories confirmed the narrative investigators had reconstructed. The disappearance had been deliberate, orchestrated, and executed by those she trusted, leveraging proximity, routine, and obedience as tools of concealment. Psychologists analyzing the family dynamics emphasized the systematic nature of the control. Every act, gesture, restriction, and command within the household contributed to an environment in which the mother's autonomy had been denied. Silence had been enforced over decades, and fear had been cultivated subtly, invisibly yet powerfully. Her disappearance was the culmination of a meticulously maintained system designed to conceal, control, and erase. In the final moments of discovery, the cold case team pieced together a timeline that left no room for doubt. Each room, each shadow, each object, each note, each memory aligned perfectly. Florida, 1979, was revealed not as a year of chance, but as a carefully orchestrated disappearance, the product of intimate betrayal and methodical manipulation. The mother's voice, preserved in journals, letters, photographs, and hidden notes, guided investigators across decades of silence, demanding recognition, exposure, and justice. By the conclusion of Part 12, the cold case had reached its full revelation. The family secret, concealed for more than 40 years, had been meticulously reconstructed, each detail documented, each trace understood. Investigators, neighbors, and listeners alike were left with a chilling realization. The most intimate spaces, the most trusted people, and the silence cultivated over decades can hide the darkest truths. The mother's presence lingered still, not in life, but in the traces, the shadows, the letters, and the warnings she left behind. Florida, 1979, had given up its secret at last, and the echoes of that summer, that home, and that family would haunt those who uncovered it forever.